I wanted to mention one of the things that we heard on Sunday from Brother Zach is the humility of mind. It says in Philippians 2, perhaps we can start there. He was mentioning the attitude of Jesus Christ and how we're commanded to have this attitude in ourselves. And it says in Philippians 2 in verse 3, do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, as we've heard many times tonight, but with humility of mind regard one another as more important than ourselves. And what Brother Zach mentioned is that it's not just external, it's not just humility of appearance or behavior. It's not just some external thing that we need to be humble in. The goal isn't to act humble, it's to actually be humble. And there's a big difference between humility of mind and how we think of ourselves, and just humility of performance. And I was also reminded of something that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 11. I was meditating on that humility of mind. And then I was reminded and really blessed to see what Jesus said himself. He takes it even, you might say, a step deeper, referring to himself in Matthew 11, verse 29. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart. Not just humble in mind, but I'm humble in heart. And I like to think about that as I was meditating on Jesus Christ's humility. He's humble. The way I took it was he's humble to his very core. He's humble to the very essence of his being. And in a way, I was thinking even for myself, that humility of mind can still be something I do. I'm thinking humble thoughts now. So if I'm humble in mind, there's still an action or a responsibility in a sense. I can think low thoughts. I can force myself to think of others, but it can still be, even if it's just myself, it can still be an act. It can still be, even though I'm thinking, it can still be an external act, so to speak. It can still be superficial. I was thinking for myself, just comparing myself to Jesus, where he says, I'm humble in heart. I don't want to be satisfied just with the doing of thinking differently. I really want to be humble in my heart of hearts. And it says, Jesus says here, learn from me. The only way I can become humble in heart is if I learn from him. And specifically, I was reminded of, I think, I don't know if Sandeep said it once or Brother Zach said it once, but I remember this quote. I've never forgotten it. How do you spell humility? Does anybody know how to spell humility? Obedience. I hope I spelled that right. But how do you spell humility? It's obedience. And he says here in verse 29, if I want to learn from him, what do I have to do? I have to take his yoke upon me. I have to obey him. I have to walk at his pace, in his direction, according to his leading. There's no learning from Jesus, humility of heart, apart from taking his yoke upon me. And, in this verse, even in the previous verse, it says, come to me, Matthew 11, verse 28, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest. And we can think about the exchange being, or not even an exchange. It's like, I'm going to come to the Lord and I'm going to lay down my heavy ladenness. But there's also, it's not just that I lay something down, it's I also take his yoke upon me. Certainly, cast all my cares on him. He cares for me, right? As it says in 1 Peter. And it's a way I can humble myself under his hand. But do I leave burdenless? Then I won't learn humility from Jesus. The only way I can learn humility from Jesus is if I take his yoke upon me. And I pictured his yoke as the cross. He said, unless you take up your cross every day and follow me, you can't be my disciple. So one way that we could see taking his yoke upon ourselves is it's taking up the cross, going the way of the cross. And I thought, if I want to learn humility from Jesus, if I want to learn obedience from Jesus, I have to take up the cross. And I've been convicted, I need a revolution in regards to my attitude towards the cross. I don't know about you, brothers, how you think about the cross, but for me, all too often I dread it, or I resent it, or I have a negative attitude. And I wanted to point out a verse that really challenged me. What was Jesus' attitude towards the cross? Look with me at Luke chapter 12. Jesus' attitude towards the cross. Verse 50. Luke 12, verse 50. I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it's accomplished. When I think about taking Jesus' yoke upon me and learning humility of heart from him, do I regard the cross the way he did? Jesus, there was a holy sense of distress. I have to go the way of the cross. I can't stand the thought of not going to the cross. It says, we got to print it on shirts, stay Flint. What does it mean to stay Flint? Fix your mind to go the way of the cross. And for me, it was a real wake-up call when I read this to say, am I distressed until I take up my cross every day? There's a sense in which, how I define a really great day? A day that I didn't have to die. What a relief. What a burden dying is. That is not a Christ-like attitude. And I'm not going to learn humility from Jesus Christ if I am happy for a crossless day. I want to be, as he says here, distressed until it's accomplished. And I need to have a revolution in my attitude towards the cross. And I was feeling like, I mentioned in the church meeting a few weeks or months ago about ways in which we need to renew our minds. And the Lord convicted me. I should have had a fourth thing there. I need to renew my mind in regards to the cross. It says in 2 Corinthians 4, in verse 10, that we're always carrying about in our body the dying of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus might be manifested in our body. For we who live are constantly being delivered over to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Christ might be manifested in my mortal flesh. I have to see that the only way to partake of and manifest the life of Jesus Christ is by bearing his death in my body, by taking up the cross. Do I have that passion? I want to take up the cross. I want to partake of his life. I want to manifest his life. If so, it'll be manifested in my attitude towards the cross. And it says, Jesus himself said, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if you want to bear fruit, we heard about abiding earlier. You want to bear fruit, fall into the ground and die. I was thinking, am I looking for ground to die in? Am I eager to go down? I want to be on the lookout for ground to die in. It says take up the cross, not accept the cross if it falls on you. Take up the cross. Jesus said, I'm distressed until it's accomplished. I set my face, I'm going that way. And for me, even, I'll give a simple example. Last night, this week, I've got a class that runs in the evenings from 2 to 8 p.m. every day. And, our girl's bedtime is 8 p.m. And so you can imagine my chagrin, David telling a bedtime story. I thought I would reciprocate. But I finished with work. It's 8 p.m. I'm pretty tired, a full day of work before 2 o'clock. And then I teach this class from 2 to 8. And I was kind of wiped. And I get inside. And of course, because the girls want to see me before they go to bed, none of them are in bed. So instead of kind of having a little bit of peace and quiet, it's crazy. There's cacophony, there's chaos. They're excited because they're up late, and even the baby wasn't asleep. And she's like, she needs attention. And my dinner's cold. I don't mean to be complaining. I'm just setting the context, right? And you can imagine, I'm kind of just thinking, man, and I was kind of tempted in that moment to resent even my work responsibilities that, man, this job makes me stay late and I miss quality time with my family and I'm pushing back their bedtimes. I'm not eating dinner, all this, stuff, just these thoughts. And the Lord graciously in his mercy reminded me, be distressed until you get to take up the cross. And what's your attitude towards this temptation to complain? And the thing is, I wasn't indulging it, but I wasn't radically violent against it either. I was just kind of sitting there, kind of eating my cold meal, taking in the noise and kind of thinking, man, this is a long day. And then the Lord just brought that verse to my mind. I am distressed until it's accomplished. And he gave me the strength and the joy and the hope to be radically violent towards, it's absolutely unacceptable to complain. I have to banish. It says we're taking every thought captive that is not conforming to the obedience to Jesus Christ. Every single thought. I'm going to take a nail and I'm going to nail this temptation. I'm going to nail my flesh, this tendency of my flesh to be to self-pity, to the cross. And brothers, my honest testimony is the joy and the peace. Whereas a moment earlier, it's like I was on the brink when the Lord reminded me, be distressed until you have the opportunity to take up the cross. You want the life of Jesus to be manifested in your mortal body? Bear in your body his dying. And this is your dying. You might think, man, you know what dying I would love? I've thought about this. I'd love the Hudson Taylor version of dying, where I got to, flee for my life, in the midst of a riot. Or I'd love the George Mueller version of dying, where I got to pray for for 10,000 orphans to get there. That kind of dying. That's the adventure I want. And the Lord says, this is your adventure. It's 8 p.m. Kids aren't in bed. Food's cold. Will you die? Be faithful in this adventure. Be faithful to this cross. Be distressed at the thought that I might not crucify these wicked tendencies, temptations that are threatening to thwart and quench the life of Jesus Christ in me. The last thing I'll say, Jesus said to Peter, when he told his disciples in Matthew 16, I believe it is, that he had to go to the cross. Peter said, Lord, never, don't do it. And then Jesus turns to him and he speaks some of the strongest words he ever spoke. He said to Peter, get behind me, Satan, verse 23. You're a stumbling block to me. And I thought, what was Peter doing? He was trying to stand between Jesus and the cross. And what was the attitude? How is Jesus' distress manifested? He was radically violent towards anything which stood between him and the cross. And that's the same attitude I want to have. I need this revolution in my thinking, in my attitude towards the cross. I want to have that same distress that Jesus did. I believe it's how I can grow in true humility of heart. Not that where it's not, as Joseph was saying earlier, it's not some legalistic formula. It's, I want to take the yoke of Jesus Christ upon me and learn from him as I walk at his pace in the circumstance or the adventure that he appoints, in the plow line that he's furrowing. I'm going to walk with him pace by pace as he leads, bearing in my body the dying of Jesus, trusting he'll teach me the true humility that he had, humility of heart, where it's not how I think about myself, it's not about how I act, but I truly am humble in heart. I believe this is what the Lord wants to do, and I really need his help. I'm really asking him to give me that renewed passion to go the way of the cross. So I believe that the Lord will help me, and I long for him to help me as well.